right into it. And welcome back to the Learning Clinic on CKLU 96.7 FM. I'm your host, Bob Kirwan, and as promised, in the studio today we have James Tregonning, who is running for the Liberals in the Nickel Belt riding in the upcoming provincial election, which is scheduled for June 12th. And James had to get through the construction on Regent Street, so we're not going to waste any time. James, welcome to Laurentian.
Thank you, Bob. Thanks for this opportunity.
Yeah, it's great. The Learning Clinic radio show has been bringing in candidates for council. This is basically what I'm dedicating this time for. But with the calling of the provincial election, we're going to invite all of the candidates for the provincial election in, so that listeners have a chance to become more aware of what the issues are and what the differences are in the parties. It's a little different than municipal elections, so I'm looking forward to it. And just so that people understand, if you want to listen to this again, if you go to thelearningclinic.ca sometime tonight or tomorrow, this entire show will be uploaded by video, so people can go back and listen again, and you can use it in part of your campaign. So let's get right into it. James, who is James Tregonning, and what are we doing here for the next 4 weeks?
Well, James Tregonning is somebody who's lived in Nickel Belt for a very long time. I've lived in Coniston basically all my life. I did move to Toronto and Wasaga Beach to work for the provincial government. I started working with the Ray government, and then the Harris government, and then the McGuinty government. And my father, unfortunately, was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer a few years ago. And I quit my jobs and came back to help my mother with his care. And that's why I came back into the region. I never worked with the Wynne government before. So I have 20 years plus of experience in government, writing all kinds of what we call MB20s in government, which is the cabinet submissions. I started many programs, Telehealth Ontario, Family Health Teams, just to mention a few, for the greater good of all the people of Ontario. My last endeavor was with community health centers and the development, of course, of the Family Health Teams model that really structured primary healthcare service delivery for Ontario. And I'm very proud of those achievements.
Yeah. So you've seen the way things run, and both on the floor and in the offices in the background.
I've seen it from the NDP government to the PC government to the Liberal government. I've seen it all and lived through it all. Yes, yes, indeed.
Any particular reason why you want to get on the floor?
Well, you know, I actually miss politics. I absolutely enjoy politics.
People have a hard time understanding that when I talk to them about my own. But it's exciting when you talk about the people who have been in it for a long time.
It's very, very exciting. You know, when we start new programs for the people, it's extraordinarily exciting. And we don't have that opportunity in the North to do these kinds of things because, you know, our central is Toronto.
Right.
And you actually have to move to Toronto if you want to get on to, you know, if you want to ride the wave, if you will. You have to be in Toronto in order to do this because you're working 24 hours a day. You're working every day of the, you know, I remember sleeping under my desk for 3 months.
Not working, you're driving.
Exactly. And when I lived in Wasaga Beach, trust me, that's a 6-hour commute. You know, 3 hours one way, 3 hours the other. So
what a nice change of pace.
It is. It is.
To get back to Wasaga. So we have a provincial election coming up.
Unfortunately, we do. Yeah.
What are we looking for from the Liberals? What are the Liberals trying to?
Well, the budget that unfortunately the NDP didn't support is probably the most socialist government ever seen in Ontario. It's got some really good things helping the poorer of the poor, you know, increasing welfare payments. That was voted against. I mean, people didn't, like the NDP, don't want to support this. $29 billion dedicated to fixing potholes right across Ontario. This is a huge issue for municipalities. Increase to municipality stipends in order to promote infrastructure changes and infrastructure upgrades. I mean, these are important issues for the people, and unfortunately, those issues now have to go to an election. So that's why we're here. The NDP didn't support the budget. I don't know why, but that's why we're here.
So if we're looking for a difference, and we will, as the conversation goes on, you can point out how in the nickel belt and the Sudbury area, how some of the provisions of the budget would definitely have made a difference here. Potholes being one. But if you can take a look at how it's going to affect locally, but also the differences, because one of the features of provincial politics and federal politics is that the parties are not all the same in terms of what their platforms are and what their vision is for the future. So if we had to say what makes the Liberal candidate distinct, is there anything you can put your finger
Well,
on?
you know, I got a Facebook question last night from a constituent basically asking me, what is this all about? What is the difference between a Liberal, a Green Party, an NDP, or a PC? What is this all about? And how am I supposed to pick the right candidate when I don't even know what all the parties are standing on?
I like that question.
And that's a great question, and you know, hats off. I only have permission to mention her first name, so Pierrette, thank you for the question.
Okay.
But the bottom line, the way I like to talk about it is let's take the PCs for example. The Progressive Conservatives are always known as the right wingers. They lean right,
Okay.
and then you have the NDPers that lean left, and never the two shall meet. Well, the Liberal Party is right smack in the middle. And I think Jacques Chrétien defined the Liberal Party the best when he said, you campaign social, but you govern on the right side of the fence. So you govern conservatively, but yet you campaign socially. So Liberals are right in the middle. Sometimes we lean to the left, and sometimes we lean to the right. And I think that is the best place for me to be, because I can see the best of both areas, right? And that's where I like to be. A lot of people say Liberals are on the fence. You don't know if you're on one party or the other party. Well, that's not true, because we see the best of both parties and we bring those two parts together.
I don't even know if this is a term, but is that kind of situational governing?
Not necessarily. I wouldn't agree with
Or
its
it
situation.
may be the wrong word. It kind of governing according to what is best at the time.
It's governing to what the people want.
Right.
Right? And that's the bottom line, and that's where I see myself is, you know, a lot of times people define politics in 100 different ways, but the way I define politics is by definition. It's the act of making good decisions. It's the way a particular community or a particular group governs themselves by making decisions. We have a legislature, and that's our politics. So in order to make good decisions, you have to engage in politics. Politics is not bashing. Politics is not about putting someone down or putting a group of people down or about mudslinging to opposing views. That's not politics. Politics is about getting the best product for the people. That's politics, and making the good decisions in order to bring forth the best product.
I guess you have to be aware of what your constituents'
Absolutely.
feelings are.
Absolutely.
What are some of the things that you do or you plan on doing?
Well, my campaign is called Building the Future.
Okay.
We need to start focusing in particularly on infrastructure issues in Nickel Belt. We need some good roads. You know, we have Highway 144, even though part of it was resurfaced, part of it needs to be resurfaced. And Highway 144 is an issue because there's no shoulders on that road. If you blow a tire, you're right in the middle of the road, and heaven forbid you do this in the wintertime where you are taking an entire lane. It's a very dangerous highway. A lot of people call it the Northern Death Trap even. You've got to be able to look at how we can best fix that problem. The highway was designed in 1962 by the Conservative government. At that point in time, they wanted to cut some dollars and save some cents, and they decided not to put wider shoulders. They decided to put 1.5 feet worth of shoulders on that highway. It's not enough. So we need to look at how to best put our money into infrastructure issues. One of the other pillars of the campaign, besides infrastructure, is senior care. And what I mean by senior care is not just the healthcare related. It's also housing, it's also pension structures. There's a lot of things that we need to do in order to help the senior citizens of our communities. These people are the most cherished people of our communities, and we need to look at ways to do that. One of my campaign points is definitely to look at affordable housing for seniors, look at ways of reducing electricity costs for seniors that are in their homes, keeping the seniors in their homes longer by increasing supports, not only in terms of home care, not only in terms of health care, but also in terms of providing them with, some dollars and cents at the end of the day, some rebates on their electricity costs. Even though that exists, we need to strengthen that a little bit more, and that's what our budget was doing. The third one, well, there's a lot of it in the budget, but that was part of it. And the third pillar is on economic diversification. We need to look at creating ways of stimulating the economy. I hear the PC saying, we're gonna create 1 million or 1 billion jobs. Government is not the one who creates these jobs. That's not the role of government. The government should be stimulating the businesses who would create the jobs. Because the only way a government can create jobs is by increasing the public service, the people that work for them. So no, we need to look at ways, and economic diversification would be, in my opinion, increasing some of the funding for the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund that would basically stimulate businesses to make application, hire new people, and diversify their particular portfolios.
So your platform and the issues that you're trying to address are really the central issues in the municipal campaign as well.
It's all tied together when you look at it, yes, absolutely.
So a lot of the responsibilities locally in terms of infrastructure, housing, senior care, economic diversity. Is this where the municipalities then become really dependent upon the partnership with the province in terms of funding? In terms of meeting the goals of, I'll put it this way, Nickel Belt and the Sudbury riding, the city of Greater Sudbury is divided up into the two. So when we're talking about the Nickel Belt riding, we're talking about a good portion of the city of Greater Sudbury.
That's right, yeah. The dependency exists already because the province does give X number of dollars according to the magic formula to the municipalities for this, that, and the other thing based on the population needs and the economic forecasts. I think that needs to be changed personally, and I would work very hard to make sure that those funding mechanisms do change in order to reflect the reality of the situation. You can't just use a funding formula and plug in some numbers and expect it to be true. You have to actually know the ridings. You have to actually see what's going down on the street, basically to understand how that street operates.
And you live in the south, so there's a difference between the way the formula would work in the north
Absolutely.
and the south, isn't it?
Absolutely. I've lived in the south and I see how that works, but the rural index that they call is not a northern issue. I mean, you have to have a specific northern funding mechanism. The magic numbers that you plug in can be realistic, let's say in Mississauga South, but when it comes to Nickel Belt, it's a whole different ballgame, right? Because the municipality would actually get, the greater city of Sudbury would actually get stipends for this, that, and the other thing. We need to strengthen that. We need to look at, we've got an aging population in Gogama. What are we going to do about that? And who's that municipality? Is there a municipality? Oh, it's an unorganized township. Well, how do we do that? How does that work? So each riding has their own issues, and you have to be able to, walk the streets and understand the issues of all the different areas in order to provide the best funding, the best dollar, and to get the best bang for your buck.
So, is there a plan?
Yeah, absolutely. The budget did have some good things in it, which unfortunately is not being supported. One of the major issues was the $29 billion for infrastructure spending and the changes to the municipality indexes. Now, when Charles Sousa was here, and I've been working very closely with the government to try and get some very important issues for Nickel Belt and Sudbury aligned, the infrastructure spending was one thing that we were very, very successful in getting into the budget. The other thing that my team and I worked very hard on was to try to get something for Maley Drive. And we did. We managed to get that into the budget. And unfortunately, that wasn't supported. So yes, there is a way to get it done. We are working at it, it's chipping away at it, but we are working at it. And we had some really good things put into this budget, and unfortunately, we now have to put it in the hands of the people. If the people want to see this happen, it's up to them to make the correct choices.
A lot of the dances that take place, though, municipally, involve two other partners. Like, there's the province and the federal partners, and it really boils down, it seems to boil down that some of the major infrastructure projects and some of the major development projects involve three parties all dancing to the same tune. And I can see the Maley Drive as a perfect one. It seems as if we've had three different records playing at the same time for years on that one. Any thoughts on, because now we basically have two people dancing to the same tune, but the third person isn't listening to the same music yet.
Yeah, not yet. In order to be a good leader, you have to be able to reach out to everybody. So one of the things that I know my particular skills are is consensus building. So even though somebody may be singing a different song, the bottom line is people need it. And the bottom line is it's something that needs to be done. And you know what? The party right now who's dancing to the other tune realizes that. So somebody needs to step up to the plate and say, hey, here's the situation on the ground. People need this done. How can you help to get it done? Put your politics aside, put everything and leave it alone, and think of the person that really needs this. How can we make it happen for that person? And I can guarantee you the person that's singing that other song will stop and take a moment and think about it. And probably in a couple of days call me back and say, you know what, you're right, let's talk. Somebody needs to start doing that. We need to start coming together. And we need a leader to bring us together.
So what's been preventing that?
Well, politics, power struggles. I'm gonna be honest with you, it's power struggles. We're in the middle of a provincial election because of power struggles. This budget is a good budget. It's the most socialist budget Ontario has ever seen, and I just can't understand why Andrea Horvath and the NDP couldn't support it. I just don't understand that.
Well, why would they say we can't afford it? Because obviously, if it's been put together, there has to be a revenue side as well as a...
The revenue side is clear on how they plan on, or how we plan on raising the money. But the bottom line is, we need to start stimulating the economy. I mean, the US have seen this. The US economy is now starting to grow a lot faster than it did. But the government did put in a huge stimulus package. Yes, there was the huge fiscal cliff, and yes, there was all the politicking that was going on in the US a few years ago, even last year, about these issues. But you know what? It's happening today. The economy is starting to grow. And we need to do that in Ontario as well. And we've done that with this budget, and here we are putting it in the hands of the people. The fact that over $600 million was cut from healthcare by the federal government to Ontario, and we're the only province that got over $600 million of healthcare cuts. We haven't touched healthcare in the budget. We've increased it. So we're assuming that, and the funding is there for that. So everyone's saying we can't afford it, but yet you have to make some hard decisions when you're in government, and you have to make the decisions in order to stimulate the economy. Charles Seuss has said in the House, yes, the deficit will go up a little. Yes, it will go up a little, but the greater good of that will happen. And the balancing of the budget, according to our fiscals, will definitely happen in 2016. So we're looking at a 2-year recuperation. But the most important part is, in order to stimulate the economy right now, we have to increase those fundings. We have to put that money there so people get back to work.
The labor unrest situation with education for one thing. I'll talk education because I'm a trustee with the Rainbow Board. But that has to be weighing pretty heavily on the minds of everybody right now, because the teachers are in a situation where their contracts are up at the end of the summer.
Bill, and I'm going to say the evil word, but Bill 115 was a huge, huge error. And I will say that. It was something that was corrected with Bill 121. and we managed to get that through. But Bill 115 was an error. That bill was rescinded, that legislation should have never happened. I myself advocated against Bill 115 and will strongly recommend that this never happen again in Ontario. I hope the teachers are listening very carefully because I'm certainly on their side on this one. Bill 122 was negotiated with the unions. There's a lot of good things that are put into that bill. Most of the revisions, if you will, or amendments that the unions wanted were implemented in the bill. It's great. It's something that is a feather in our chapeau, if you will. The other issue is Tim Hudak. I mean, has anyone heard of Wisconsin and what happened in Wisconsin a few years ago? We certainly don't want to see that in Ontario. We don't want to see unions brought down. We don't want to see unions busted over a government disagreement. And Tim Hudak has certainly made it very clear that the war on labor will start as soon as he's in power. I know he kind of backpedaled a little bit, but the bottom line is, in the papers this weekend, he even said, it was in the Toronto Star, the unions have been running this province for too long. And to me, that scares me. When I hear comments like that, that truly scares me. And here we are going into an election where the NDP supported that. And it just makes no sense to me.
Safety, health and safety, especially in the workplace. Recently, the latest fatality at Ballet was on, actually touched my family because it was my daughter-in-law's brother. You've grown up in Sudbury. I lived in Lively. My wife lived in Creighton. Safety has always been front and center, and it seems as if more is being done to make the workplace safer. Any parts of your platform that are moving forward on that front?
Absolutely. I mean, the strengthening that the government what we did with Bill 168 and 169 were first, we were first out of the gate for health and safety reform. More needs to happen. The Wynne government basically sat down with the unions and said, you know what, a mining review needs to happen. The mining review is ongoing, and I hope the recommendations are going to be implemented by the new government, and hopefully it's going to be the Wynne government, so that we can continue with that strength. Workplace health and safety on all aspects, whether you're in a mine, whether you're in an industrial, or whether you are sitting behind an office desk, is number one on everyone's mind, because at the end of the day, you spend a lot more hours at work than you do at home. And you need to be able to feel safe, and your family should be able to be feeling safe that, my husband or my partner is going to work, and I know he's going to or she's going to come back. And that's an important safety feature for everyone to have in their mind. And to me, it's a no-brainer. You've got to do it. Mm-hmm. So strengthening 168, 169, and strengthening workers. Basically, that's what you're doing. You're supporting your workers, and you're supporting your people. Right? A happy worker is a happy workplace, and a happy workplace is a productive workplace. So everyone benefits, including the employers.
I imagine energy is going to be a hot topic over the next few years, a few weeks too, in particular.
Yeah.
Hydro and.
There are different ways. I know in Coniston, when I was growing up, we had a pilot project going. I don't know if you remember that, Bob. We had the windmill. We used to call it the windmill over at the Hydro Dam in Coniston. There was this big windmill put on the mountains behind Coniston, and it was the genesis, if you will, of the wind farms. That particular program actually was started by Peterson, and it was a great project. And I would like to see more of that happening here. If we can find ways to use energy, the energies that we have available, solar energies and wind energies here in Nickel Belt and Sudbury, in order to reduce some of the electricity costs for our northern residents, then more power to us. If we can have an area of crown land dedicated for a wind farm, or if we can have solar panels put up on some mountain somewhere that it will be able to be plugged into the grid, these are good things. And that's what I would be looking for. I'm looking for opportunities in order to divest some of our energies, if you will, into renewable energy infrastructure.
Yeah, that's it's a good goal. Mental health and wellness, it's another big topic, especially with youth and workplace stress. And I think the latest statistics are talking about 1 out of every 5 young people have some kind of a mental health issue that gets in the way of their day-to-day activities, and now the numbers seem to be creeping for adults to closer to 2 out of 5 that have something that affects their day-to-day living.
Absolutely.
That gets into productivity, it gets into healthcare, it gets in, we haven't even talked about healthcare. I mean, that's a good segue into healthcare. How do you talk about those big items when you're talking to the people in Nickelbelt?
You know, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. I don't know if anybody knows that, but mental health is a huge issue right across the board. Like you're saying, mental health prevention, because there are strategies that you can use for prevention. I know, you know, concussion issues for one, sports and youth with head injuries. These are all issues that can be prevented, and we need to put some infrastructure dollars, if you will, I'm going to, for lack of a better term, into promoting these types of prevention programs that can happen. There are some biological and some chemical issues regarding mental health that need to be looked at. You know, we don't want everybody on particular drugs, but are there other avenues that can be used? Can you be making better, you know, nutrition choices, if you will, that would help break down some of the chemicals? These are things that can be done, but we need the infrastructure dollars in place. One of the things that I was going to be working on with Deb Matthews, a good friend of mine, Deb and I have worked together for, well, the past, a good 10 years, was to look at ways of increasing nutrition. So we had a program that was strengthened in the government, or in the budget actually, on student nutrition programs, and that was going to be increased. Where I was also trying to get Deb to look at subsidies for naturopathic care. That's a huge contentious issue, but it's something that I truly believe in. You know, trying to get some of the remedies, if you will, from natural products covered by OHIP. Huge endeavor, huge endeavor, but it's something that I think we need to start talking about, and that's certainly on my agenda.
Is the budget going to be the central focal issue
Of the campaign?
In this campaign?
That's a good question. I personally believe, I'm not sure what Central Campaign is going to say to this, but I say yes. This is a good budget. This is something that Ontario needs. And it's something that I certainly will be advocating for throughout my particular campaign. Any
particular ways that you're going to get across to, or get around to the Nickelbelt? Because one of the criticisms has been that Nickelbelt is such a large riding to travel, even on a regular basis.
Yeah, it's...
And any ideas on what you're going to do over the next
well,
4
I've
weeks?
got,
It's only 4 weeks, isn't it?
Yeah, I know, it's very quick. I've got some key people, you know, in the outmost areas. I physically won't be able to get everywhere. I've already been to Gogama. I plan on going to Foleyet. I plan on going to Matagami. I will go to those areas. But I've got some key people there that'll promote as well. So I'm hoping that the team will help. We do have some literature that we'll be going door to door with. And the bottom line is, what I'm asking everybody to do is talk about it. Because the bottom line with politics is we have to start talking again. Nobody is talking. There's no more relationship between people and government. And that's sad. We need to start talking about issues. Go to Tim Hortons. Talk about it at your table. It's not just about, you know, the sale that's going on at Sears, or, you know, the great sale that's going on at Canadian Tire. It's about politics. It's about what you need. This government needs to do what? That's the stuff that I want to hear.
And you know, it's a good segue into this, because when you start taking a look at provincial and federal politics, it's almost as if you've inherited the votes of your your ancestors. It's like if your family has always voted Liberal, your family is voting Liberal, and God help you if you vote anywhere else. How do you change that? Or is there gonna be a natural change because we've got a 21st century